tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah. Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Gonna learn the consequence of being incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams and some honestness. I'm not here to save the day, that's for you to take away. I could play a million mind games, but instead I say something not illogical, something that is topical. Rub it on and watch it go, make yourself unstoppable. Dreams are irresponsible, but they're always possible. If you just believe, you could be so remarkable. Thoughts in my head, a collage and they spread. I'll be great one day, going off of my meds. No, I'm not giving up, no, I'm not giving in. I will make it to the top, taking off in the wind. I gotta make it, I'm saving every day to taste it. I'm patient, but my mind, it can hardly take it. I'm chasing a dream that I've had for several ages. A vacant, modern kingdom for the taking. Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
All right, welcome everybody. It is Justice Watch Live episode 19, and this is an important one. This is the closing argument. This is the wrap up for the Christopher Gregor case. We just got done with it. A verdict was returned on Friday, finally, and the justice process worked again and again. You know, one of the definitions, many people, again, the whole theme of this channel is that the justice is not the outcome, right? And it's not. It's the process itself. It's a fair process that gets to play out, that gets to be fair to the defendant, to the victim, to everyone. And although in this case, unfortunately, the justice system sometimes, you know, in the way it operates at times, sometimes doesn't seem like it's fair. And this is one of those cases that I think, you know, that was that was present, because there were things that were not able to come into this trial that, due to restrictions on hearsay and due to the fact that they weren't related to necessarily the case, or necessarily the defense was successful in keeping them out. But ultimately, there was a fair trial held. And in my opinion, I don't think anybody could say Chris Gregor didn't get a fair trial. And the good news is, I didn't follow the pretrial, but I don't think we're going to have to worry about too much on appeal. I think the judge did a good job in this case. I think the defense, you got a good, competent defense. The state were good prosecutors. They did a really good job. You know, and at the end of the day, we had a verdict, and we had a verdict and a conviction in the case. Now we're going to go back and we're going to watch through now from the lens. whenever I take on a case and start watching a case, I like to watch it like a juror would. I like to sit in a box, watch it, give that perspective with the evidence being presented in court. There's always another story out there. There's always evidence that didn't make it into trial. And in this case, there is a tragic story that indicates that, yes, if some of this evidence could have come in, that what was going on here, that I don't think the jury got the whole story. I don't think we got the whole story. And I think the man sitting at that defense table is an absolute monster from what I've seen, what I've heard. And there is a lot out there that wasn't able to be talked about. Now, today, you want to go check it out. There was a interview done today with the mother of Corey Micciolo. Her name's, I guess, Brianna Micciolo. She gave a lot of background, and it was over on the channel. I believe it's, hold on here. I should have been prepared for this, but I watched the entire interview, and it is absolutely startling what you hear. Now, it's guilty of crime. So go over and check that out. I subscribed to the channel. I found it because of this great channel over there. Great things going on over there. Check it out, but check out the interview because it is absolutely enlightening. And to me, when you hear that interview and you hear some of the things that are discussed in that interview, and there's another interview out there that, or I guess it's not even an interview; it's a live stream. We're gonna watch a clip from it that was done on Brianna Micciolo's YouTube channel, and we're gonna be able to watch that. And there's some information in there that I think when you hear the events that occurred and you understand the sequencing of events and you understand what actually happened and what didn't happen, and you understand some of these things, you start to see a picture develop that this was a guy who was just an abuser, who was a sadistic individual. And in my opinion, he was getting boxed in. And what happened that day, I think, could have been first degree homicide. It could have been second degree homicide. But the thing is, and that's what's so difficult about these cases, is what gets to a jury, what's allowed to come before a jury, because of how these cases work, because of the fact that you have a young victim in this case who didn't speak, or when he did speak, he spoke to others, and then he's not here anymore. And he's a little kid. So as a result, things didn't get in front of the jury that could have told this entire story. We're going to try to tell that story, my theory on the case tonight, of what I think happened, telling it through witnesses, expert witnesses, and a clip from the channel that Brianna Micciolo put up from 2 years ago. Now, we're going to get into all this. I'm not going to sit here and narrate. I'm not going to spoil anything. We're going to talk. I'm going to discuss with you guys as it goes. But this is, like I said, this is a situation. This is a highly tragic situation that is just unbelievable. And this young man, this little boy, suffered. There's no question about that. And for those that I knew were showing up in chat, and I understand, listen, we were limited by what we saw, but there is an overwhelming amount of evidence that this child was abused. There's an overwhelming amount of evidence that this child was being mistreated by this man. There are other kids, apparently, and again, all of this is hearsay and stuff, but it appears there are other kids that got affected by this individual. Now, all that was kept from the jury, and it had to be, because it was not evidence that could come in. There is rules on what can be presented, but now we kind of know. And like I said, it's such a sad situation, and we have to have, we now have Chris Gregor convicted, and he will get punished, and I hope the judge gives him 40 years. There isn't a case. There is not. If this isn't a case that screams out for the max on the manslaughter charge, on the aggravated manslaughter, and the child endangerment, I don't know what case does. This case absolutely does. So we hope that happens. But as you're going to hear, as we get moved through this case tonight, accountability is has to be demanded for the failures of the New Jersey Child Protection Agency and the system that is in place. They failed Corey Micciolo. They failed Brianna Micciolo and her family, and it should be looked into. They literally could have prevented this, and they literally handed this child back to a guy who had been told multiple times to not have his child on a treadmill, who had suffered severe injuries from that treadmill, who clearly in that treadmill video was mistreating his child. And there was other subsequent information. And again, I'm not going to play it here out of respect because they've asked, but if you go into the Facebook page of Justice for Corey, there is and if you actually go to the interview, it's played before the interview with permission of Brianna Micciolo, but there is a recording of Corey talking to his mother about what his father subjected him to and how his father would pull his head back, choking him to throw him in his room. This kid, like I said, this kid was abused. There's no question about it. He had bruises all over his body. And listen to go. I'm not going to play clips from that interview. I want you to go over to that channel, subscribe to the channel, check it out. It's an hour and 55 minutes. But go over and check out that interview in its entirety. Brianna and her mother speak, and it is absolutely harrowing, and it is absolutely sad, and it's just horrifying to think that these people were trying to do the right thing throughout this, and they were ignored and they were failed. Anyways, so with that said, let's get into the first clip. The first clip I want to do is I want to bring the background in so we can talk about that. And then we're going to bring in the medical testimony and trial clips, not full medical testimony. And then we're going to listen to Dr. Bodden to wrap things up so we can get a full picture. And then we're going to talk about it as an overall. I'm going to talk about it because this is not live. This is a live, doing a live premiere, or however I decide to do it. It'll be a live premiere, or it'll be a live pre-recorded broadcast. But like I said, this is just a absolutely extremely sad situation on any way, shape, or form. So let's jump over here now. So we're going to go ahead and hit play on this. This is another mother that was failed by the system. And Brianna Micciolo gave this interview on, I guess, a few years ago. But this is this other mother, her story is harrowing and tragic. I'm not going to play this entire video. I'd like you to go over there. If you go over to Brianna Micciolo, type it in YouTube, you'll find her channel. Go over, subscribe to it, and watch this video, because this other lady that's in this, that what she went through with how Child Protective Services failed her and her young child, it's absolutely heartbreaking, and it needs attention. So please head over and check it out. I posted this video, the full video, a link to this video also in my community page. So go over there. You can find it. Get subscribed. Bring the army over. I'd love to see all 28,000, almost 29,000 followers here. Get over there and subscribe and show your support, because this is the stuff we need to really pay attention to. Anyways, with that said, let's start listening.
Introductions.
This is going to talk about what happened when Corey was conceived. I'm not going to go into many details because of investigations and whatnot. But so when Corey was conceived, it was not consensual. It was sexual assault. I was 16 when I got pregnant, and Christopher was 21. After that, I got pregnant. I told him about it, and immediately he wanted me to have an abortion.
So let's talk about that for a minute, guys. You heard this right. and I didn't know this. People were coming in my comments talking about it. I didn't know this is what it was. This was kept out of the trial. This was not allowed to go before the jury because it's an unproven fact. It's not, it couldn't come in. But Corey was the result of allegedly non-consensual sex. Okay. Now she gets into this in more detail in the interview she did today, and it essentially related to drugging her, allegedly getting her drunk, getting her intoxicated. So the consent was not consent. It was not consensual in related to the fact that he allegedly got her intoxicated and then gave her some sort of a drug in a drink that knocked her out, and then all of a sudden she's pregnant. And she knew from just her own experiences that she hadn't been with anybody else. She wasn't doing things. She was 16 at the time, and she ends up pregnant in this situation. And he admits, he claims it was not, that it was, consensual. So obviously, given who he is, who his dad is, she doesn't pursue this. So if we take this at face value, and given the information we have, we're just going to take her story at face value. This is horrifying. It's even equally horrifying that, again, I'm not going to sit here and say, all right, why did you not do this? Why did you not do that? How could you be around them? I mean, those are questions people are going to have. But for me, I don't know what was known by Child Protective Services. I don't know what the thought process was here in not pursuing him for this. But the fact that he was allowed to be in this child's life after impregnating her in an unconsensual sexual contact is crazy. I mean, I can't believe it. But apparently New Jersey didn't care about that. I don't know if they were aware. I'm assuming they were. I'm assuming if she's speaking about it here, she probably spoke about it to whoever was then. But again, unfortunately, they ignored her because she had a drug problem. And that's sad because, listen, I can tell you right now, people that have a drug problem are still human beings. And while they may do things in pursuit of drugs, they still should not be dismissed. They still should not have things like this dismissed, and they shouldn't have the abuse of their child dismissed. And they shouldn't be considered to be an unfit parent necessarily if they're trying to take action to deal with that drug problem. And the Gregors, being the powerful people that they were, the position that his father was in, obviously took advantage of that and used that. So his son ultimately kills this little child because nobody would believe her because of her drug addiction. And that's pretty much where this comes in at. And this is why we have to make sure that this does not go unaddressed, because I hope it's a lesson. Anyways, let's get back to listening.
So after that, I just tried to stay away from him. I didn't want him to be involved because I didn't want him to try to force me to have an abortion, because I wanted Corey. I didn't believe in abortion. And so like I said, I stayed away from him for a long time. He knew I was pregnant. He knew he was the father. He didn't come around much for 5 years. And he did once in a while, but it was very briefly, just here and there for 5 years. And then when Corey was 5 years old, I went and applied for government assistance. I didn't know that doing that made them go and file for child support themselves. It was them against Christopher at first for child support. I didn't know that was going to happen. If I did, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have applied. But they asked me who his father was, and I told them. And so they went ahead and filed for child support. And that's how he came around. For a while, he just paid the child support. And I guess at some point, his family found out that he took a DNA test and Corey was his child. And I believe that his parents forced him to go to court and get visitation. So once the visitation started, immediately, that's when Corey started coming home with his bruises. The first incident, he came home I think it was the second visit with him, and he came home with a busted lip. Christopher dropped him off by the driveway, and Corey walked up, and then once he came inside, Chris sped off, and then Corey came inside, and I could see that he had a busted lip and he had some blood on his shirt. And I asked Corey what happened. At first, he was hesitant. He didn't want to tell me. And I asked Christopher. He didn't answer me, so I decided to take Corey to the police station, which he was afraid to tell them what happened, but they ended up calling.
So I want you to understand this, what she's saying. Second visit with his father, he comes home with blood on his shirt and a busted lip. She took him to the police. They were aware. Okay? So if what she's saying is true, and I'm sure I have no reason to believe it isn't, and it would have been documented, the question I would have is why the state wouldn't have gone with a theory of this was an abuser who just abused him and abused him and abused him and abused him until he killed him. And he killed him to hide the abuse because the abuse, he'd been abusing him from day one. There should have been relevant information as a course of behavior to testify. Like think about the O.J. Simpson case. They had the baseball bat person come in, or the fact that he broke her windshield. Then they had the 911, the 1989 case, the 1993 case. So why couldn't they come in and say, yeah, this happened? They came in, they filed a report, it was found unfounded. The defense gets to cross-examine them and show, okay, it was unfounded. This was the excuse that was used. But it still should have come in because in hindsight, when you look back at it, it's as the end result of what happened, it's relevant. It's relevant information. So it's just crazy. So anybody, again, I want to distill right now because I know a lot of people in my comments, oh, she was, and again, the defense tried to portray this, she was this person who was a derelict mom. No, she wasn't. She was trying all her best to report this. So she's on top of this, okay? And listen, I have no bone in this fight. I'm just saying, as I look into this, as I'm digging into this, as I'm getting into it and leaving the jury box and saying, let's see what really happened here, what was hidden. This is, again, I don't know what's in the files or in the case files, but I would imagine if she's not going to sit here and say this, if she didn't actually do it. So let's continue listening.
DCPMP. And they came out and they did their investigation and they talked to everyone. And Corey didn't tell them what it was, but he told me and my sister that Christopher smacked him in the mouth because he had cursed. And Chris told them that he accidentally kicked Corey in the mouth while he was going to kick a soccer ball. But of course, Corey had a different story. And that case got closed because they felt like it was unsubstantiated. And then after that, the next time Corey came home and it looked like he had like rug burn all up and down his arm, all up and down his torso. And he looked like he had a handprint on his face. And I asked Corey what that was about. And he told me that his dad thought he was too fat. And he made him run on the treadmill. I asked Chris about it, and he said the same thing.
So this is not the treadmill incident right before he passed away. This is a year before he passed away that this incident occurred that she's talking about. And I want you to keep that in mind because listen to what happens next. DCP or DCCP or whatever you want to say, DCPP goes in and tells him, you can't put your kid on the treadmill anymore. Yet he does. And they have the video that we watched. And the judge denies that order to put Corey back in his custody or in her custody. So the question I have for that judge and for the Department of Child Protection is why, if you had a guy who you already told him don't put your kid on a treadmill and he does it again and you see him biting his head and manhandling him and the mom's filing an emergency order and he's covered in bruises, Why would you allow that child to be delivered back to that parent who at that point that would tell you he's being abused? This is an unbelievable failure of the state of New Jersey. And hey, I'm happy the prosecutors were so vigilant to prosecute the case after his death. But where the hell were the prosecutors in wanting to prosecute him before he died? Why were they not so vigilant? Why were they afraid to take him on before? Like I said, hats off to them. They got the job done. He's facing 40 years now, and we need the judge to finish it. But it should have not come to him dying before somebody said, let's go advocate for this child. They should have. I mean, there's enough evidence. And again, let's let her finish speaking about this. It's so infuriating.
He thought Corey was too fat, and I needed to stop feeding him fast food. So then I called DCP&P, and I guess they thought it was okay for him to do that, but they did tell him that he can't go. You can't put him on the treadmill anymore, and obviously he did again. And after that, I have calls with DCP&P every week. There was different incidences where Corey would have a busted lip, black eyes, bruises all over his body. And then I'm going to fast forward to March 20th.
So before we get into March 20th, and when she's telling this is before the video was released or anyone knows. So we kind of know what's coming on March 20th. But I want you to listen to what she just said. If that's true, if these reports exist, if she was truly calling weekly, reporting busted lips, bruises all over the body, and this was going on for over a year, and they were still letting him stay with that father, what the hell's going on here? I hope she has a very good attorney. I hope she has an attorney as good as Christopher had in that courtroom. I hope she has an aggressive bulldog, and I hope they sue the hell out of those people. And I also hope those prosecutors who are so quick to go hold that father accountable, that they charge those people for failure to act. They have a failure to act. They have a duty of care to that child. One of the aspects, okay, that allows you to charge manslaughter is if you have a duty of care to protect. And in my opinion, if these prosecutors really care about this child, I mean, we got prosecutors out here in Michigan, right? They're charging parents because they bought a gun allegedly, and 7 months before there were text messages saying that this kid thought, was trying to, seeing things or whatever. Now, that case set it up, but they didn't charge the school officials who ignored their duty of care to all the children in that school. But in this case, those workers, the judge, the prosecutor that ignored this, the grandparents that may have been aware of this, there should be a full investigation going forward that should look, because the manslaughter should be considered for anybody who was involved in the decision, who was aware of that treadmill video, who was aware of the hundreds of abuse, and allowed that child and required that child be turned back over to him. And you're going to learn, and we're going to learn more about what was going on that day. That's going to bring in more into focus on why I'm saying that should be the case. But if there's hundreds of contacts and weekly contacts and evidence of bruises, and this kid was still not taken out of the custody of his father, then it's not just the father that's there. The father should be there for maybe aggravated manslaughter or even murder, right? Even homicide, second degree, first degree homicide. But somebody else, that's where you get into the reckless homicide. There was a duty of care for that child. That was reckless to allow him to go back into the hands of that man. And they should be charged. And they should be indicted. And there should be a federal prosecutor out there who has the courage, because you could almost say also that these officials that failed to protect the civil rights of that young man, his right to be protected. And that's a novel case. Somebody have the courage to do it. Somebody have the courage to refer this case to the Justice Department and say, hey, are we going to finally hold government officials accountable? Are we going to hold these lazy state officials who take hundreds of reports? And if you listen to this lady, we're not going to listen to it, but you should go over and listen to it because you're going to hear the same government officials who failed to act. They failed to act on behalf of her children, and it resulted in her 1-year-old child dying of a prolapsed rectum. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. But we need to see action taken beyond just Chris Gregor in this case. This is the stuff, right? This is the stuff that is just absolutely, it can't go on. And we need to have people in positions. This is where you cannot be lazy. This is as serious as a doctor going in the emergency room drunk or just says, I'm not going to follow protocol or procedures, and he slices somebody's major organ and kills them. That doctor will be charged. Just like these public officials. You incompetently allow a child with 100 reports of abuse back in the hands of a monster, and then he goes and kills him when he knows that he's supposed to be reporting to a doctor later that day who he knows is going to be a child abuse expert, and you let him go back to the father, and you don't let him stay with the mother to get him at least to the child abuse expert first? That's crazy. Anyways, I'm skipping ahead. Let's continue.
When not the next incident, but the latest incident. So Chris took Corey to the gym. He had a gym in his complex. And what he did to Corey was caught on surveillance camera. I didn't know this until after Corey passed away. No one told me about it. So Christopher made Corey get on the treadmill, and then he sped it up as fast as could, and Corey couldn't keep up with it. So he fell and hit his chest. I've never seen the video because I can't. I don't want to see that. I don't want that memory stuck in my head. But the way, I'm just telling everyone the way it was described to me. So he fell and hit his chest 6 or 7 times. And then Chris walked over to Corey and picked him up by the back of his shirt. And sorry. So he picked him up by the back of the shirt and placed him back on the treadmill, and Corey's like feet were dangling, and then he bit him on the top of the head. And I don't know the ending. I don't know exactly what happened at the end, but that's how it was described to me. After that happened, I like I said, I didn't know about the video, but then when I saw when Corey came back home, he lifted his hair up and showed me this bump on his forehead. And I was like, oh my God, Corey, what is that from? And he told me that his dad made him run on the treadmill. And so I called DCPMP. I made a report. They went and I guess checked their surveillance camera, but they didn't tell me that. But what they did tell me was to take him to his pediatrician for a child abuse exam, which I did.
So, all right. So what she's saying here is she makes the report. The whole reason why we ever knew about the treadmill video is because she made that report. They got the video before he passed away. They then told her, go get a child abuse exam. They still leaving him in the custody of his father. Now, she files an emergency action. You're going to hear her describe it. And it gets turned down. And they're in possession of the video, which they then charge him with in July. Why would it even take months to charge him based on what you saw in that video? Why did they not go charge him right away? They waited till July? Is it because his dad was a state police officer or that, a high up official? Does that matter when you do what you saw in that video? It's unbelievable. Anyways, let's continue.
And at this exam, they, went over his whole body and marked every bruise that he had, which it looked like he had got beaten with a bat. It was so bad. So so while we were at the doctor's office, the doctor was asking Corey what happened, and he was very reluctant about it. And when she asked him the first time, he just said it was like from football, but you could see his eyes were like darting around the room, and he didn't want to look at her, so we knew he was lying. Oh my god, my makeup. And so she asked him again, and I got upset, and he got upset, and he told her, what he put him on the treadmill and that he was abusing him. So then the doctor told me to take him to the hospital for blood work and x-rays, and I did. And they took an x-ray because he had a really big bruise on his chest, and nothing was broken, thankfully, but they told me that, the next day that me and Chris were to meet and go to the doctor. He was a child abuse expert. And the next day was Chris's day, so he was with him, and Chris was supposed to bring him, but he didn't end up doing that. And so I dropped Corey off at his house around 9 a.m.
You just heard there. That day, the day Corey passes away, she's told by DCPP, bring him back to his father, and you're going to go to a child abuse expert because that child abuse expert wasn't available on April 1st when she had him at the hospital. So she's instructed to bring him back to his dad instead of taking him to the child abuse expert. Why could they not have done the exchange there? So instead, she's forced to bring him back to his dad, who then doesn't show up, and then shows up 3 hours after he's supposed to be the child abuse expert with a child on the verge of death, who then dies 2 hours later. And then, of course, as we know from the trial, Chris Gregor's he hits the streets. He's out. He doesn't hang around. He doesn't get crying. He's out searching about, can they track the car? How soon will they charge you after they make a determination of homicide on an autopsy? Why? Because he knew what was happening. Because I believe, based on what we've heard here, the hundreds of reports, the way this was going, she took him and got him to, made a report and had custody of him because of the emergency actions he filed. She was forced to return him back once the judge turned her down. Before she takes him back, she's told, you can take him to the hospital and go get exams and examinations. Chris Gregor spends the day telling her, bring him back and get him out of there. And then when he gets home, what do you think happens when the abuser gets the kid he's abusing back? You've been talking, son. You want to tell people you're being abused? You're going to get abuse. And he beats the hell out of him. And then what happens? Well, the kid ends up passing out. And that's what you see the picture of him laying there. He passes out. And then he starts to exhibit symptoms of, he loses his bowels, he throws up, and Chris Gregor gets worried. Why? Because Chris Gregor knows what he did when that kid arrived. Because Chris Gregor knew what he did when that kid arrived. It had nothing to do with being late. I don't know why the prosecutor argued late. It had nothing to do with that. I understand he said 2 in that time, and maybe he was upset about being late that day, but he was upset because that kid was talking, because he knew he had to now go to a child abuse expert later that day, an expert doctor who was going to do a review because Corey had been talking, because Corey had said things. And he says, kid, you're getting it. Now, again, whether in order to prove first-degree homicide or second-degree homicide, he had to have intended to kill him. I don't think he intended to kill him at that moment. I don't think he ever intended to kill him. So I think aggravated manslaughter is probably the correct thing. But the fact he was looking up first-degree homicide and how quick will you be charged with it tells you what he thought it was, what he thought he was going to be charged with, because he was trying to silence the boy. And his rage got the better of him. But I think it also speaks volumes with the fact that he got worried and he realized I went too far. But he doesn't stick around. He doesn't show that he didn't love that boy. And this isn't a case where he was overdoing it, or he was trying to mentor the boy, or he was trying to get him slim. No, this is a guy who's just a sadist, a sadistic individual who uses corporal punishment on his child. If the child didn't like him, it would piss him off. This guy used the child as a tool to get back at the mom. And again, there's a lot more on that in another interview, not in this one. But the bottom line is this guy, like, this was a course of behavior. And maybe you could have convinced the jury that when he got in there, he was so mad that again, he had an indifference to human life. He had malice, and he beat that kid up and killed him, and beat him so bad that he killed him and beat him unconscious. And then now, the only reason why I think that the jury got it right on the aggravated manslaughter is because he did take him to the hospital, even though it's like, well, he did take him to the hospital. So that demonstrates it's not like he left him in the apartment and fled to Tennessee and then suddenly, or took him out in the middle of the woods and just left his body, or, whatever. He actually took him to the hospital, tried to get him medical assistance. So I think that alone gives him the aggravated manslaughter, because what this shows is, but I don't believe for 1 minute that sepsis or pneumonia was the cause. And maybe it was. Maybe somehow he captured that. Maybe that kicked in and went in underneath it. But I think that there was some hometown cooking, because as you're going to learn here, Mario Gallucci was hired before he ever made it back to New Jersey. Gallucci was working behind the scenes. Gregor's dad was working behind the scenes. And I think the medical examiner, who absolutely would have known that Gregor family, went in and gave it and did his work to ensure, or at least try to ensure, that he never got charged by making it an undetermined cause of death, which prevented anyone from charging him. But then the state at least went and did the right thing by getting in Dr. Andrews, and we're going to hear from his testimony later. But they went and got him in, and thank God they did, because they went ahead and were able to get this case prosecuted. Anyways, let's continue listening. We only got a little bit left, and then we're going to leave this, and then we're going to go and start to watch some of the experts from the state, teachers, and hear some of what she's talking about from those people that experienced it. Here we go.
And Corey was healthy. He was breathing. He was walking. He was talking. I dropped him off. He walked inside. And then everything, he didn't show up for the appointment at 12 p.m. And then he called me at 3:30, and he said, I'm taking Corey to the hospital. He's been sleeping a lot. He's not eating. His legs hurt and he's throwing up. But I don't think that was true. I don't think he was throwing up or anything. But he hung up. He asked me for Corey's insurance card, hung up on me, and I'm trying to think. I'm sorry. And then he hung up on me. And then I texted him a few times saying, "What hospital are you at? I'm going to meet you there. I need to be with Corey." I called him a lot. He didn't answer me. And after, I would say, about like 20, 30 minutes, I called the police and I told them what was going on, that he had called me and said Corey was sick. He was taking him to the hospital, and now he's not answering me. So then the police went to his house and called him, and he wouldn't answer. And, all this is going on, and I'm freaking out, but I'm not thinking like it was that serious. I just thought he was sick and, throwing up maybe. And because he was fine earlier in the morning. And then I get a knock on my door, and it's the cops. And I just figured like, oh, they're here. They're going to tell me where Corey is. And, yeah, that's when they told me that Corey passed away. And it just didn't make sense because he was okay 6 hours before this. And then after they told me that, I was like, he killed Corey. I can't believe he did it. And after that, I asked them where Chris was and like what's going on, because I knew what he did to Corey, but I didn't think he was just not even gonna come tell me that Corey passed away. So they told me they didn't know where he was, and they were looking for him. And they eventually found him in Tennessee, and I found out later that he just dropped Corey off at the hospital while Corey was dying, and he didn't have anyone with him. So yeah, so he ran to Tennessee, and I guess he got a lawyer before he came back to New Jersey. So when he came back to New Jersey, he didn't have to answer any questions the cops had for him. He pleaded the Fifth Amendment, and to this day, he still hasn't answered one question.
Now, I want to clarify, this was before he was charged. That's how old this video is. This was before he was actually charged with anything. But the important thing to take from this here is that what we didn't know, what the jury wasn't allowed to be told is he didn't return back until he had a lawyer. His parents hired him, Mario Gallucci, who was there from the day. And again, like I said, there was a lot going on behind the scenes. So what I believe happened is Chris Gregor was called by his dad, and Gallucci set things in motion. And I believe the Gregor family got confirmation that they said, because remember, he leaves. He comes back after the autopsy is done. Remember that. And Gallucci, who's a well-connected lawyer, would have known what that autopsy said. And they said, son, come back. It's all taken care of. Because I believe his father made sure that he got with that medical examiner who never got called by the defense. He never got called by the state. You don't want to put the guy on why put him on? They had Bodden. They had a world-renowned guy. But by having that as undetermined, they then knew he wasn't getting charged anytime soon. And then, of course, they had the treadmill video. And he didn't get charged with that until July. That was April. 3 months. It took 3 months to charge him with that. Anyways, there's a little bit more, and then we're going to be done with this clip.
Question about what happened to Corey that day. And since then, he was charged with child abuse for the surveillance video that the police had. They retrieved after Corey passed away. So he's been charged with child abuse, but not Corey's death. And I found out that Corey passed away from a heart contusion, which is a bruise to the heart. There's only a few ways that happens, and one way is falling from a 2-story building and falling on the ground, and then another is a car accident, and then another is blunt force trauma. And we know that Corey wasn't in a car accident. We know he didn't fall. So the only thing left is that Chris hit him. But unfortunately, right now, the medical examiner is coming back with undetermined regarding his manner of death. So as of right now, he hasn't been charged with murder, which he should be. And yeah, I mean, that's where we're at right now.
I don't even have words. I seriously don't. You describing the incident with the treadmill makes me physically ill. That
Right.
anyone would put a child on a treadmill and call them fat and humiliate them and embarrass them that way, to the point where it's on a surveillance video.
Right.
And just it's disgusting. I mean, what I wanted you to talk about is the emergency motion. Like, you filed an emergency motion, right?
Yeah, I did. I did. I filed for emergency full custody, so he wouldn't have to go there until DCPMP did a full investigation. And, I told them, like, just until you guys do a full investigation, because in my heart, I'm like, if they actually do an investigation, they'll see what's happening. And they denied it the day before he passed away. And it didn't make sense, because if they didn't deny and they ordered it, then Corey would still be here 100%. I blame them not as much as I blame Chris, because no one made him do that. But if they protected Corey, he wouldn't have been in that position.
Yeah, it's highly disturbing. And I was in the same boat. You know, I filed either 2 or 3 emergency motions, and they were completely ignored.
Yeah.
And, you know, these undetermined deaths that they come up with all these different possibilities, you know, they leave you basically powerless to do anything. Because if
Mhm.
you're sitting here just labeling a child's death undetermined, and then you're giving all these possible causes, but you can't say exactly what happened, or you can't give the definite answer that it's child abuse, you know, you're not left with much recourse.
Right.
And fortunately, in your situation, you don't have any other children. Because if you did have any other children, you would be in family court right now arguing the fact that your other child shouldn't be seeing this abuser, this person who
Right.
is a now documented child abuser and is a complete risk to any other children. And what is it he does for work? Because that's also important.
He was a teacher. He got fired because he got arrested for marijuana possession a couple years ago. And then at the time of Corey's death, I think he was a real estate agent, which he no longer has a license for, I believe, because he can't be around children. And when you're a real estate agent, children come with their parents to see a house, and he can't do that. So I think they revoked his license.
That's good. So he can't be around children. Is that part of the conditions of the child abuse charges?
Yeah, I think it's he can't have unsupervised contact with minors,
Okay.
which still.
All right, so there you heard it, guys. She did everything she was supposed to do. So for everybody out there who wants to say she didn't do enough, she did everything she was supposed to do. She kept Corey in her possession. She filed an emergency motion. She asked that he be able to stay with her until they completed the investigation to keep him safe. And the state of New Jersey basically said, no, we're sending him back to his abuser, and then he dies. And I mean, she says, I don't think they're just as responsible. When they know someone and they have the amount of complaints that they had, they have the video. See, she didn't know that video of the treadmill existed because she hadn't seen it. I don't think she saw it till trial. So she hadn't seen it yet. Had she seen it, I guarantee you she'd have probably said, to hell with it. I'm not taking him. I'm not taking him. If she would have seen how it all went down. But she didn't know it existed. She was just told, take him in there, get him this, and then we'll go from there. And then she thought, well, we're going to show up at this child abuse expert. And she takes him in, delivers him to Christopher, and he doesn't show up at the child abuse expert. And 3 hours later, he's walking in the emergency room with a child on the verge of death. Put that together. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to put those pieces together. He knew he was in trouble. He knew he was running out of time. And he knew if a child abuse expert got involved, like that was about to happen, he was about to get cooked. And they should have never allowed that child back. That is why I say they had a duty of care to that child. They had a duty of care to him. It was reckless for that judge, for that prosecutor, and it's high time we start holding those officials accountable for decisions like that. Decisions that any normal person looking at those set of facts, isn't that the standard they applied in Michigan to the Crumleys? Any reasonable person who's looking at that picture, who sees a photo, this is akin, that treadmill video being seen is akin to Ethan Crumley drawing a gun on a paper and the school officials letting him go back and the parents letting him go back. And she tried to not let him go back. And she was forced to turn him over. And those officials who decided that they were going to let politics and money and influence speak instead of caring for that child should be held accountable. It's time that we stop allowing stuff like that to happen in this country. And if officials are going to make a decision like that, then then they get to own that decision. Then they get to own that. And if you're going to let people like Chris Gregor, who has 100 abuse accounts against him, possession of that child, look what's going on behind me. This is the treadmill video right behind me. Imagine him doing that. And he gets possession of that child. He's angry, he's mad, and he goes and he beats that child to death. And why the prosecutor didn't make that argument in that way, in that moment, in that courtroom, hammering that home and bringing in all of those abuse complaints, if they exist, there should be an investigation as to why those were ignored by the courts. And those prosecutors should be as vigilant and as interested in prosecuting those individuals as they were in prosecuting Christopher. Now let's go check out. We're going to go get into the testimony here. Give me a moment here. Let's get back. Pathologist Thomas Andrews
after you reviewed all of this
in
material
regards to Corey's
in regard
injuries.
to the decedent's cause of death.
Yes,
And can you tell the jurors what that opinion is?
but Corey died of blunt impact injuries of the chest and abdomen with laceration of the heart, left pulmonary contusion, and laceration and contusion of the liver.
After reviewing the materials in this case, did you formulate an opinion as to the decedent's manner of death?
I did.
And can you tell the jurors what your opinion is?
Corey's manner of death is homicide. Dr. Ragasa saw and documented several abnormalities. There was a large contusion of one of Corey's lungs. I believe it was the left lung. Examination of Corey's heart externally didn't show anything, but on the internal examination of the heart, after the heart was opened to reveal the chambers of the heart, a laceration or tear in the tissue was revealed on the right side where the liver lives. There were two injuries that he documented. There was a laceration or tear in the liver tissue on the right edge, the right lateral aspect of the liver, and there was also a contusion or bleeding underneath the capsule of the liver on the front edge of the liver. In assessing the potential for child abuse, it's not so much that contusions are life-threatening in and of themselves, but it's the pattern and distribution of injuries and also the presence of injuries of varying ages that suggest that a child has been mistreated. And Corey had contusions over a wide area of his body of varying ages, from under his chin, his head, his trunk, his extremities. There was one fairly large one just on the left side of his chest that looked to be fairly large, and that had been previously assessed. And particularly the presence of contusions on the back without a pretty clear-cut explanation it's not diagnostic of abuse, but it's very suggestive of abuse, certainly given the company that it's keeping. So my concern was not so much with the severity of the bruising, but the pattern and distribution of the bruising as being suggestive of child abuse.
At some point, you're going to see Christopher.
All right, so let's talk about what we just heard from Dr. Andrews. He talks about the bruising, the way that he saw that the bruising and the way the injuries that were sustained were not fresh. In other words, if CPR was the cause of some of those injuries or the injuries to the heart, they would have been fresh. They wouldn't have had a chance to have had certain processes begin when an injury starts to heal. So they were in the process of healing, indicating they had begun healing and had, and these are things that begin within hours of an injury. So, and as you heard Dr. Andrews explain, if the issue to the heart was deep enough in the heart, it would allow him to survive, unlike what Dr. Bod said, where he says, no, he wouldn't survive more than 1 to 2 minutes if he had that laceration to the heart. And he says, no, if it's deep in the position, he could survive, but then you'd see exactly what happened to Corey happened, where he just immediately just disintegrates. Now I want you to hear Gallucci, and remember, this guy's been here from the beginning. Now, again, listen, he is advocating for his client. Obviously I know why the Micciolo family would hate this guy. Lots of people would hate my dad. I mean, I understand it, but listen, he's doing a good job. Okay. But the bottom line is, this is why he got away with arguing how he did to the jury and presenting how he did to the jury, because he was successful in keeping a lot of evidence out. And that's a shame.
Go over to that treadmill and speed it up. And you're going to see Corey fall. And you're going to see him pick that boy up 6 times. And 6 times put him back on the treadmill. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to like him. And I don't care if you like him. When you see that video, you're going to be horrified. You're going to be mortified. But I'm telling you right now that the evidence you're going to see of Corey's death had absolutely nothing to do with that treadmill.
All right, so obviously the defense's argument here is in the case was that he died of sepsis, and that was because of the Dr. Ragasa finds what he says was evidence of pneumonia and sepsis. And again, with him having been to all the hospital facilities, it allowed the defense to make that argument. Like I said, you might not like him. He was putting up the best defense for his client, and it was the best defense for his client, because unfortunately, if Corey died of pneumonia and didn't die of the abuse, okay, then Chris Gregor literally gets a pass. But listen, with everything that you find out's going on, the week with the emergency hearing the day before that he ends up getting a pass on, and the kid gets returned, and he's got an appointment with an abuse expert that day that he no-shows, and then the kid shows up at the hospital on death's bed, on death's door, and you're going to tell me that you think it was just pneumonia? I don't think so. But given all of the things that are going on, the unexplained things, why would they have had that child returned to the custody of his father? I'll tell you why, because of Gregor's dad. And I guarantee you, when you see Gregor, he flees because he believes he killed that child. He believes whatever he did to that child when it returned to his custody, he killed him. That's what he believes. And he's telling you what he did. He's telling you days before what he would do to the child. How long does it take for a red mark to turn into a bruise, etc. He's trying to figure out how to abuse the kid in ways that wouldn't show up. And then when he does go too far, he's worried and says, oh my God. But he's not worried about the kid. He's worried about himself getting caught, going to prison. And he doesn't want this kid to go back to her because he hates her and he's upset. And really what it comes down to is she rejected him because they were never together. I thought they were together. They were never together. She rejected him. She from day one. And that was something that his ego couldn't allow. And then when he had the opportunity to go after the one thing in her life that she loved and cherished more than anything, her kid, when he was hurting Corey, he knew he was hurting her. When he would send Corey back with a bruise, he knew she would see it. It was victimizing her. And then when he was flexing the fact that, hey, listen, I'm so powerfully connected, I can do whatever I want, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Now, his goal, I don't think, was to kill Corey because he loved sadistically being able to torture Brianna. But he went too far. And then when he realized he went too far, he flees. And then when he gets down to Tennessee, his dad calls him and he starts to head back. Why does he head back? And why? And I couldn't understand. Why was the defense not wanting to worried about the dates? They were worried about the dates because they didn't want, I think they were concerned with tying it into the fact that the autopsy of Corey happened. I believe it was on the 3rd. And I believe the Gregors were informed through Gallucci, who was involved, who got hired on the 3rd, that by the 4th, Gallucci and Gregor and his connections had all reached out, and they were told by Ragazzi, you're taken care of. I'm going undetermined. And once they heard that, they said, Chris, get your ass back here. You're looking guilty of something that, now we got it. It's undetermined. What you're doing right now is going to make you get charged. So get your ass back here and act like a grieving dad. What are you doing? Anyways, we're now going to listen to the first grade teacher. Remember, and when you listen to this woman, remember, she was available. Why wasn't she questioned?
Do you recall seeing the mark on his forehead, the abrasion, on March 19th?
And why didn't she speak up?
On Corey.
Why?
The first time you saw it was when you returned on the 23rd.
Exactly.
When you saw the injury to Corey, did you try to talk to Corey about what had happened to him?
I did.
What was Corey's demeanor during the conversation that you had with him?
Just kind of like quiet, would just answer one word. I noticed him with long sleeves often, in those weird months in September, October, where, we all got our new school clothes, but they're winter clothes. So he always had long sleeves on.
Could you tell me specifically what the message said?
Sure, I'll read it.
Yes, please.
Hey, I just found out Corey's other side of the family had left the state and saw him this weekend after being at a mass gathering, so he will not be at school this week. Also, the week following spring break, he will not be there because he will be on vacation with me in Key West. In order to do the virtual learning, is there anything we need other than logging onto Google Classroom?
And this was reported to the officials that he had taken him out of school, basically lied.
What Corey's demeanor was when you observed him.
And she testified to that.
Very scary.
And yet
scary
the child officials didn't think anything of it. Anyways, let's listen to Dr. Ong.
Did you conduct a physical examination of Corey while at the emergency room at Jersey Shore?
Yes, I did. I did from head to toe examination, and then we marked down all the bruises, scratches in the diagram. I put everything in my chart.
Now, how were Corey's vital signs?
His vital signs are stable, and I'm not concerned when he arrived because of the vital signs are stable. We saw some bruises on the head.
Now, I want to clarify, this is the doctor who saw him the night before with his mother, and he's describing what he saw. This was the child abuse examination. And you've got to wonder, why in the world would they allow him to go back to the custody of his father when you hear about these bruises? Why would DCPP have not, why would these doctors have not reached out to them and said, listen, don't let this kid go back? Or if this is where he got them from, he needs to stay with the mother who's here, who's reporting this. It's insane. Anyways, let's continue.
Some bruises on the body and some bruises on the back and legs. And neurologically, we do the cranial nerve examination, basically neurologically intact. He has no neurological deficit. He is active, alert, and not in distress. And any signs of failure and chest examination within the normal limit, I did not hear any respiratory distress, wheezing, murmurs, hypoxia. He has nothing. And bar abdominal examination, abdomen is soft, no signs of acute abdomen. That means no tenderness, no pain, and no heart inconsistency by palpations. And physical genital examination within the normal limit. All 4 limbs examinations, motor is intact, sensory is intact, saw only bruises, scratches.
So the first hit in the Safari web browser on this.
All right, so you heard what the doctor said, right? He documents evidences of bruises and scratches, and that there was nothing wrong with him that night, right? And that's significant. Now, he was in the medical facility. He was there until he was tired. It is possible, obviously, that, those are preconditions that he could have gotten hospital-acquired pneumonia. It's possible, right? But at the same time, it's important to note that there were no fresh wounds. There were no wounds that had evidence that they had started their healing process less than 4 hours before, like we just heard Dr. Andrews say. So that's significant. Now, this is the last piece I'm going to play from the prosecution's case, because this is significant, because this goes to the frame of mind of Chris. What we've learned from Brianna, what we've learned now from everything, and this is his internet searches right after he leaves his son at the hospital to die. And remember, he left his son before he even died. He left him there to die alone because he was worried about himself. Anyways, let's continue.
Was a search conducted on March 25th, 2021 at 9:36:31 p.m. The body of the search states, will red marks turn into bruises?
And could you please move on to the next one?
Sure. The next search is on April 1st, 2021 at 8:43:36 p.m. The search was Neptune Non-Emergency Police.
The next one.
Next search is on April 1st, 2021 at 8:49:05 p.m. The search was Jersey Shore Medical Center.
Please move on to the next one.
The next one is a web history on April 2nd, 2021 at 3:08:37 p.m. The search was lost consciousness, sleepy and nauseous - Google search.
Please move on to the next one.
Next entry is April 2nd, 2021 at 6:10:22 p.m. The search was, can your phone be tracked in airplane mode?
The next one.
The next search was for April 2nd, 2021 at.
Now, I want you to note that was at 3:22 p.m. Corey is still alive. So it's possible that search was in relationship to him trying to hide make sure that Brianna Micciolo couldn't find him. But I doubt she had access to his cell phone. But they're trying, but there he is. Why is he worried about that? My opinion is, I think it's more likely that he's realizing his son's going to die, that his son's in bad condition, and that he needs to get the hell out of town. And that his plan is to go drop his son off at the hospital and then leave the hospital ASAP and disappear. That's what I think that was about. But again, obviously it could have been that he just didn't want to have, but that really doesn't make much sense that he'd be hiding from her, because I don't think she had access to his phone. So I think, but at 3:22, his son's still alive, but they're all getting ready to go to the hospital. So that's telling you what his plan is. He's taking Corey. He knows he's done something to Corey. He knows that hospital is going to probably figure that out. Now, at least he's taking him there, because that tells you that he doesn't want him to die. Probably more so because he doesn't want to get charged with his death, but that means he wasn't intending to kill him. So I understand why the jury would have then went on that alone right there. And I believe I don't know if they got playback of this or not, but to me, if I'm in that jury room, that's what I would have said. Well, I think that just eliminates that off the top, because the fact he presented at the hospital shows he didn't want him to die. It doesn't mean he didn't go too far. It doesn't mean he didn't commit aggravated manslaughter. Anyways, let's continue.
6:10:35 p.m. for Can My Car Be Tracked?
The next one.
Next search was for April 3rd, 2021 at 3:55:40 p.m. The search is, could internal bleeding raise your blood sugar levels?
Please move on to the next one.
The next search is on April 3rd, 2021 at 3:56:55 p.m. The search is, how does gastrointestinal bleeding happen?
Is there a next one?
There is.
Could you please tell us what it is?
Next search was on April 4th, 2021 at 9:58:03 a.m. The search was, there was a murder determined from an autopsy. How long to file charges?
Is there another one?
The last one is on April 4th, 2021 at 10:21:16 a.m. The search was, how long after an autopsy to file charges get filed?
Could you please describe to me what the first task was and what you did?
Sure. The first thing they proposed to me was to identify if conversations between Christopher Gregor and Brianna Micciolo were deleted from Christopher Gregor's iPhone. If messages were deleted, please identify when they were deleted.
What did you do with regard to that?
So essentially, I opened up Ms. Micciolo's phone extraction, and I opened up Mr. Gregor's phone extraction. On Mr. Gregor's phone extraction, there were 0 text messages with Ms. Micciolo. On Ms. Micciolo's phone extraction, there were 3,466 text messages saved with a conversation with Mr. Gregor. That was the first indicator that something was deleted from Mr. Gregor's phone. I looked at the message retention settings within Mr. Gregor's iPhone and saw the value for message retention duration on his phone was set to forever, as in messages would not be deleted unless a user did it themselves.
So there you have it, guys. There you have it. He searched how, and that was on the 4th. Now, and again, this is significant because I want you to understand, okay, that to me, what's significant here is the timing of his searches. On the 4th, the autopsy happens on the 3rd. Gallucci's hired on the 3rd. All the way up until about 10 a.m., he's worried about being charged. I believe it was sometime around 11 or noon that he talks to his parents, and there's a conversation, and he decides, I'm going to head back home. And he's told to come back home. That's because, in my opinion, they find out that, lo and behold, miraculously, the autopsy comes back undetermined. And Dave Gregor's influence plays out again, and he's going to get his son out of trouble. That's what I believe. And I believe that Dave Gregor was successful once again in getting his son out of trouble, whether you like it or not. And he successfully got to the medical examiner, or exerted his influence over the medical examiner, who then, I believe, gave an undetermined determination. And listen, some may say that's conspiracy. I just think that when you look at this and you look at the timing and you look at the way that on Friday they're not turning the kid over. Dave Gregor is behind the scenes. His influence is all over this case. His influence is affecting the judgment of everyone involved in this case, including the medical examiner. Anyways, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to watch some clips from Michael Baden's testimony. Then we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to wrap this up. But I think that when you tie all of this in, what we've heard from Brianna Micciolo, the untold story, and again, there's lots more detail. Go over to her interview from today. It's linked. Well, I haven't linked it. I think I'll throw up that interview in my community section for you guys before I post this video up. But go over, check it out. It's worth your watch. It's almost 2 hours, and it is a gold mine of information in addition to what you've already heard here, which is a little less detailed because she was a little more, she was required to not say as much. But you put all that into effect, hundreds of complaints. She filed an emergency motion. That motion is denied. Dave Gregor obviously is all over that. It smells of Dave Gregor all over that and his influence and his ability to try to get his son out of trouble. And then Chris Gregor Corey Micciolo is returned to Chris Gregor. Chris Gregor knows Corey Micciolo has been at hospitals. He's been talking to doctors. He knows he now has to have a meeting with an abuse expert at 12 p.m. Gregor doesn't show up because what does he do? When he gets Corey, he beats the hell out of him because he says, you're talking and you're not going to talk today and you're not going to run your mouth today. And when we go to this abuse expert, you're going to keep your mouth shut. And he beats him up and then he cancels the expert. And then Corey almost, I would say, very quickly declines. And then you see him making a search at 3:22 in regards to whether or not he can hide his phone's location, which tells you right away that he knows he's done something to Corey. And that's when he's making preparations and getting ready to head into the emergency room. He's got a son who's nearly dying, and that's what he's searching on his phone. That tells you everything we need to know. Everything we need to know. Anyways, let's jump into Dr. Baden's testimony. And I've got to actually, I'm going to play this. I'm going to step away while we're playing this. And then we'll talk about this here in a moment.
Do you have an opinion after you reviewed all the material in regard to Corey's cause of death?
I do.
Can you tell the jurors what that opinion is as to Corey's cause of death?
I think that Corey's cause of death has been confused because of extensive injuries caused by the CPR process. That I agree with a part of Dr. Ragasa's cause of death that indicates injuries to the heart and other organs, which I think is are typical vigorous CPR injuries. And I don't agree with that part, but I do agree with the inflammation and sepsis part of his diagnosis. The inflammation and sepsis part of Dr. Ragasa's diagnosis refers to inflammation in the lung and the finding on culture of bacteria in the lung that could cause pneumonia and sepsis. So I think my cause of death is different than Dr. Ragasa's in recognizing, in my opinion, that the injuries are all CPR injuries. Nobody can live for more than 2 minutes with a 1.5 inch laceration of the heart, for example. And I do agree that the most likely cause of death is the lung inflammation, the bacterial capture of what the bacteria was, and his symptoms, the symptoms of shortness of breath, cyanosis, means a bluish color due to low oxygen, finding in the hospital that he had an 85% oxygen level, which is very low. All of us here would have about 97% or higher. And so I think all together, the most likely cause of death was a very severe, rapid pneumonia.
Did you form an opinion as to the manner of death?
Well, my opinion would be that the manner of death, for all the information we have, is natural.
What would be usual CPR on a 6-year-old child?
Well, normally, if the heart doesn't respond by developing its own normal sinus rhythm, the CPR will stop. That is, it's fruitless usually after 20 minutes.
And how long was CPR conducted for?
49 minutes.
Now, doctor, there's been a lot made about an injury to Corey's heart through this trial. In the medical examiner's report, I believe it's described as a 1.5-inch laceration to the heart. Do you have an opinion as to how that 1.5-inch laceration to the heart occurred?
My opinion is that laceration occurred from continuous CPR, compression of the heart, between the sternum, the breastbone, and the spine that happens with sufficient compression of the heart. That the heart has no place to go between the sternum and the spine, the thoracic spine, so that injuries are common in the heart, and lacerations of the heart are not the most common, but can occur.
So now, if somebody was to sustain a 1.5-inch laceration to the heart, would that be something that could kill them?
Absolutely.
And how long would it take a person to die had they received a 1/2 laceration to the heart?
Well, the heart would stop beating within a minute or two. That is, the heart needs the electrical circuits in the heart to be functioning, and not only does a laceration cut through the muscle, but also through all the nerves in that area, and which would stop the electrical circuits in the heart.
That injury had occurred at 2:02 in the afternoon up until 3:43 in the afternoon, that's when Mr. Gregor arrived at the hospital with Corey. Would he have been dead already?
He couldn't live more than 2 minutes with that kind of injury. Yes, absolutely.
Let's go back to the blunt force trauma that you opined was due with the blunt force trauma was the CPR that damaged the heart, right? You've already testified, I believe, that's not what killed Corey, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Could that have been why we see the response in the polys?
Well, he had that response before CPR. When he had a 29,000 white count, his heart was pumping blood. He was alive. And then when he passed away, the white count would not change. It just stayed the same afterwards. It wouldn't increase any more than that.
So to you, your opinion is that's more reflective of an infection than it is to an actual injury?
That's
In your opinion, did Corey have cardiomyopathy?
he did not have. No, he didn't have any kind of cardiomyopathy before CPR.
And he based that upon a 33-second video where Corey is speaking to his, I believe, his mother. Did you review that video?
I did.
Do you know how many words? By the way, did you see Corey on that video?
Yes.
You did?
The video I'm talking about, yes, I saw it.
You heard Corey or you saw
No,
it?
I saw it.
On the 33-second video?
I believe so.
The video which is audio of Corey.
Where he says, where is it, sound?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that. I
Okay.
listened to it.
Okay. When you listen to that video, he also based his opinion on a photograph that was taken with Corey. First of all, does that video, to you, as a doctor, a forensic pathologist, former medical examiner, does that video have any diagnostic value in forming an opinion as to the cause of death of Corey?
Not to me.
Does that photograph that was taken at 2:02 of Corey asleep on his father's lap with his father smiling, did that have any diagnostic value with respect to Corey's death?
No.
Are you able to make a medical diagnosis based upon a picture of a sleeping child?
Not in this situation.
Are you able to make a medical diagnosis on a 33-second video where a child says less than 9 words?
I can't. Okay.
And you didn't review any of the police reports from the Alcoa, Tennessee Police Department, correct?
From the which one?
The Alcoa, Tennessee Police Department?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And you didn't review the reports from the Ocean County Sheriff's Officer's Crime Scene Investigation Unit, right?
I believe that's true.
Okay. And as a forensic pathologist doctor and someone who has performed numerous autopsies, the facts surrounding a death or the attendant circumstances surrounding a death should be considered in determining the cause and manner of death, correct?
Yes.
Are you aware that when Corey went to school on March 22nd, he had a bruise on his forehead and was sent to the school nurse?
I believe so. That sounds familiar.
And you did not consider that in your opinion or include that detail in your report, correct?
I didn't consider that it had any relationship to the cause of death.
And you also didn't put that fact within the report that you prepared, correct?
I may not have, right?
So, doctor, are you aware that Corey's first grade teacher saw him the next day on Tuesday the 23rd, and she saw a bruise and was concerned?
I don't recall.
Are you aware that Corey's mother saw an imprint bruise and scrape on his chest when she was with Corey on March 23rd of 2021, where Corey was scared and upset, correct?
I remember there was a large bruise on his chest, yes.
And again, you didn't include that detail in your report, right, doctor?
That's part of the bruises I looked at, and that was a legitimate bruise and happened many days before he died.
Do you know that on March 25th of 2021, the defendant conducted a search on his phone as to will red marks turn into bruises?
No.
You weren't aware of that, doctor?
No.
And were you aware that on Friday, March 26th, Corey was kept out of school with an unverified absence?
I
You didn't
don't.
know that, doctor?
Probably not. I don't recall that.
So, doctor, you didn't consider that Corey's teacher, the person who would be with him every single day, was concerned about bruising and saw this on Corey's body in formulating your opinion as to cause and or manner of death?
My opinion as to cause and manner of death were dependent on the findings at the time of death, and that whatever injuries and bruises which I looked at and which Dr. Regassa described did not cause or contribute to his death. It was my opinion after looking at the various bruises, and I agree with Dr. Regassa that it had nothing to do with his death.
Okay, so you reviewed medical records from IV Pediatrics?
Yes, at some
And
point.
you noted in your report that Corey's mother brought him first to IV Pediatrics, then to Community Medical Center, and then to Jersey Shore University Hospital, correct?
Yes,
Now, at approximately 10:49 on the evening of April 1st, blood work was collected from Corey so panels could be run while he was at Jersey Shore, correct?
could you repeat that, please?
At approximately 10:49 on the evening of April 1st, blood was collected from Corey so panels could be run regarding his blood work.
Yes,
And so this would have been approximately 17 hours before Corey was admitted to hospital on April 2nd, correct?
right,
And Corey's white blood cell count was within normal limits about 17 hours before he presented at the hospital the next day, correct?
yes,
And at 11:01 p.m., a skeletal bone survey was conducted at Jersey Shore, right?
yes,
And as part of the survey, a chest x-ray was performed, right?
yes,
And the condition of Corey's lungs were noted to be clear, with no infiltration, with no significant findings, correct?
yes,
And Corey was not admitted as a patient at Jersey Shore, right?
that's correct.
And Corey did not actually see the staff pediatric child abuse specialist while at Jersey Shore the evening of the 1st, right?
I don't recall that.
And were you aware, doctor, that that weekend was Easter weekend?
Yes,
And are you aware that at 9:49 a.m. that morning, the defendant sent a text to Corey's mother stating that she was going to be in for a rude awakening, not indicating that Corey was sick at all?
I don't recall reading any text messages.
Are you aware that at 9:55 a.m. the defendant sent a message to a female named Amy confirming that Corey was okay when he was brought home that morning?
I didn't see any text messages.
So you didn't review the text messages in association of this case?
That's correct.
Lento also asked Dr. Bodden about a search that Gregor performed on his phone at a critical time.
Do you know that at approximately 3:08 p.m. on April 2nd, the defendant conducted a search on his phone for lost consciousness, sleepy, and nauseous?
No,
And did you know, doctor, that the defendant deleted this search from his cellular phone?
no,
And were you aware that the defendant deleted his text messages between himself and Corey's mother for days around the time when Corey had passed?
no,
Are you aware that at approximately 3:30 on the 2nd, the defendant spoke to Corey's mom on the telephone and told her that he was bringing Corey to the hospital, but didn't tell her what hospital he was actually taking Corey to?
I don't recall that.
Doctor, did you review the surveillance videos from Southern Ocean Hospital?
Did I review the?
Surveillance videos from Southern Ocean Hospital?
No,
Okay, doctor, you didn't review multiple different surveillance videos from Southern Ocean Hospital where the defendant is seen taking Corey to the emergency room and taking him from the back seat of his car. You didn't see that video?
no,
Did you see the video when Corey presented at Southern Ocean Medical Center where you can see the condition that Corey was in when he actually presented to the hospital?
I don't believe so.
And questions on cross-examination had also covered the CPR that had been performed on Corey in the emergency room.
Now, doctor, are you aware that the CPR that was performed on Corey has been described before the jury as pediatric CPR?
Sure.
And are you aware that the nurse who actually supervised the CPR had testified that one-hand CPR, pediatric CPR, was performed on Corey because he was 6 years old?
I don't remember the details, but sounds right.
Now, doctor, those details, that's not anywhere in your report, correct?
No.
Aware that the defendant did not answer calls from Corey's mother at 5 p.m. and 5:04 p.m.?
No.
Are you aware that defendant's father told his son that he was going to call the police, and when the defendant's father got to the hospital, the defendant had left?
No.
Are you aware that the defendant searched, can your phone be tracked in airplane mode at 6:10 that day, and then searched, can my car be tracked at 6:10?
No.
Are you aware that the defendant then put his phone in airplane mode at approximately 6:31 p.m.?
No.
Are you aware that the defendant didn't put his phone back on until approximately 2:19 the following day?
No.
Are you aware that when the defendant put his phone back on, he was in Arkansas by the Texas border?
No.
Are you aware that the defendant spoke to his father in a 25-minute phone call where his father told him to come back, and only then did he turn around and start heading east, doctor? So you're not absolutely certain that that's how Corey died, because as you just said, there could have been other possibilities, correct?
You're confusing what I'm saying. I'm absolutely certain that he didn't die of cardiac trauma, as was Dr. Regasso when he did the autopsy. Put down after the heart disease question CPR right on the first day that he looked at those injuries. So I'm certain he did, and from the fact that you can't live more than a couple of minutes with that kind of injury, I'm certain he didn't die of heart and liver and lung injury. I think the most likely cause of death is some kind of pneumonia that developed that evening after he went to a number of hospitals where he could have picked up that bacteria. But that's the most likely, but I'm not saying it's definite.
Okay, doctor, I appreciate that. And you also said during your direct examination that Corey could have died from sudden, unexpected 6-year-old death syndrome?
Yes, sudden, unexpected, sudden, unexplained death in childhood, which is a cause of death that is listed hundreds of times every year in children who die like Corey, where the cause of death isn't certain.
Okay, so the cause of death is not certain, and are you aware, doctor, that Corey was almost 7 years old when he passed?
Yes, I am.
In all your years in practice, do all people grieve the same way?
No, absolutely not. People grieve in totally different ways and react to the death of a loved one in different ways. And there's no just one way that people are upset. Absolutely not.
Now, did the fact that Christopher left the hospital and drove to Arkansas and came back have anything at all to do with your diagnosis as to cause and manner of death?
No.
All right, so I apologize. I had to step away for some of that, but I'd already watched that video. But anyways, I think we got the gist of it. So to recap what we watched, Dr. Bodden testified that, in his opinion, the bruises and the injuries were all old, and that they had nothing to do with death, with the cause of death, because of he looked at slides that Dr. Ragasa had taken, and he looked at a culture that was done, and he said that there was evidence of infection, and that was indicating that he had died of sepsis. That was a complication of pneumonia, of hospital-acquired pneumonia. Now, we also, I didn't put up Dr. Feinstein, who Dr. Bodden discredited in his testimony and said, because she said that in her opinion, the way Corey presented, she'd never seen a case of pneumonia present the way Corey did, nor act or react the way he did, or act in that. There's a 33-second video that Bree took of Corey, and I didn't play it. I'm not playing it here, but of them talking, and you hear Corey in it, you hear him sigh, and I do hear him sigh. He sounds like he's tired, but they're saying it doesn't sound like a kid who's short of breath, who's struggling to breathe, who's in any type of, who's in any type of distress. And of course, the idea that she would take him and drop him off at his father's, that is one of the biggest things too you have to look at, because the jury has to employ common sense in this and say, why, if he was in distress, wouldn't she have taken him back to the ER? Of course she would have. So we could say he was in okay health. Well, you could say good health because he was still suffering from the abuse he had suffered at the hands of his father, but he was in okay health when he was dropped off with his mother. Now, on cross-examination, they did a hell of a job on cross-examination with him, because what they did is they did the smart thing, and it's exactly what I said Tyrone Tucker needed to learn how to do, and that is tell your story with your questions. And what I think became apparent when you listen to Dr. Bodden's cross-examination is he was given the report of Dr. Ragasa. He was given certain information by the defense. He wasn't given all of the information. He wasn't given text messages. He wasn't given the entire context. He was just given the medical evidence. Now, I understand what he's saying. He's saying, I looked at this, and regardless, I didn't need to see any of that other stuff because I didn't make a finding. I didn't see evidence that abuse was what caused the death. He's not saying that abuse wasn't present. He's not saying there wasn't evidence of mistreatment. He's just saying that what killed this young child on that day was not from an injury he sustained at the hands of an abuser. Okay? So, again, the problem is, of course, is he was relying on Dr. Ragasa. And again, what I see here is that Dr. Ragasa, because I again, followed the timeline, and you saw that timeline play out in the cross-examination. Christopher is leaving and fleeing. He talks to his father, who has now hired him as an attorney. The autopsy has been completed. Dave Gregor has done what Dave Gregor does for Chris Gregor, and he has pulled the strings. And I am quite certain when Chris Gregor turned the vehicle back towards New Jersey, it was because Dave Gregor told him, when the autopsy report comes out, son, it's going to be undetermined, which means you're not going to get charged unless you're stupid enough to flee. And everyone wants to know why the hell you fled. And really, had he not fled, had he not left, and he stayed there as a grieving dad, he might have even beat this charge. But I think the evil guy that he is, the jerk that he is, just, it is what it is. That's who he is. He's a jerk. He's an abuser. And as a result, he was worried about himself, and he tried to flee because he knows he did something to Corey after he was dropped off. Something that resulted in his death. And perhaps, maybe there was maybe Corey had developed, some sort of a bacterial infection. Maybe he was suffering from it, but I don't think that sepsis, and maybe he would have died eventually from it, but I don't believe that that's what would have caused it. And again, a lot of people were coming in and saying, but listen, when it comes to raising doubt, this is, my argument at the time, and this is what I got a lot of heat in the comments, but I think people were missing what I was trying to say. I wasn't saying that Chris Gregor isn't an abuser, because he is. I wasn't saying that he didn't kill his son. I'm saying, as a juror who's presented with this set of facts, where you have a medical examiner who says it's undetermined. That in and of itself is reasonable doubt. You cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt that someone was killed, that it was a homicide, a first or second degree homicide, or even manslaughter, if the cause of death is something completely unrelated to what would be caused that. Now, I was saying that even if you found that he didn't administer a blow to him that day, that if you found hospital-acquired pneumonia, you still get the aggravated manslaughter, or at least reckless manslaughter at a minimum. In the child endangerment, well, we got the video on that. He should have been convicted of that. And there should have been about 20 other charges, it sounds like, piled on. Because it sounds like this guy was beating his kid and abusing his kid on a continuous basis. And, you know, again, obviously they didn't feel that they could have enough evidence of the specific times of abuse to charge him, because you got to have that. But in my opinion, the treadmill incident, they got him. But he should have been charged that week. They should have absolutely never returned that child back into the custody of Chris Gregor. Never. Never, 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 never. So, let's conclude. We're at the end of, I apologize here. I triggered my music. Didn't mean to do that. We'll be triggering in a minute. But let's conclude here, because we're going on 2 hours. I'm going to keep this at 2 hours. So, let's talk. Let's talk about what we can take from this. We just looked at a majority of the medical evidence. I didn't put up the expert. Again, she simply spoke to the fact that it was unlikely that it was sepsis. But I was more concerned with the abuse aspect, because I think that's what should have been here. I really wish the state, and again, I don't know, maybe they tried to. Maybe they had to adjust their approach. But I really wish the story would have been told to the jury that this was a continuous situation, that you had a Chris Gregor who's sitting there in that apartment, who has a child returned to him, whom he has just learned, who he knows. Again, to me, the biggest piece of evidence is the fact, and again, I know that was told. I know they were aware of the missed appointments. But but in the closing argument, it was told he's punishing him for being late. No, prosecutor, no. I think the better argument would have been he was upset because it was about to come out that he was an abuser. And he was mad, and he was angry. And when that child came home, he beat the hell out of that kid to say, listen, you're not speaking. And then how do we know he did that? Because he cancels the appointment at 12 o'clock. And he cancels the appointment because there's fresh bruises on him. There's fresh red marks on him. There's fresh evidence. And he knows he needs a couple of days to make sure. And he doesn't think at that moment that whatever he did to Corey, was going to kill him. But turns out, guess what? Corey doesn't wake back up this time. Corey doesn't come back. Corey is unconscious. He's losing consciousness. He starts throwing up. And Chris Gregor realizes, oh my God, I went too far. And we know Chris Gregor was upset, obviously, with Bree and with him being late on the 20th. And within moments, he took him down there and he punished him. But the punishment wasn't about being late this time. It was about, you were at the hospital talking. You must have run your mouth to your mother. I've got DCCMP after me. They're going to try to take you from me. I'm going to lose the ability to screw around with your mother now and to be able to victimize her more. And he's mad and he's angry and he's pissed off, and he knows he needs to intimidate this young child to shut his mouth. And that's what he does. And whatever happens shortly after 9 o'clock, in my opinion, sometime in that range, when he manhandles that child. And again, go on to Justice for Corey and listen. Go on to the and again, let me see if I can find it here. I'll show you guys. Hold on a moment. history. In fact, I will borrow. You know what? Here, hold on a second here. All right. So I'm going to play this just to end it. I said I wasn't going to play it, but I'm going to play it just because I think it's relevant here. I want you guys to go over. This is going to also show you the channel, the stream. This is from the interview. So go over and check this out. Guilty of a Crime. Fantastic channel. Fantastic stuff. I'm going to be sharing this in the community. I'm going to put it in the description of this video so you can find it because you need to go listen to this interview. But I'm going to play just a very small clip. I'm not going to play anything from the interview that she did. But excellent work here on this. But let's pull this up here really quick. So here it is, and you're going to listen to this. And I want you to listen to this because I want you to hear what this young man says his father did to him. Now, this is available on the Justice for Corey Facebook page. So this is not something exclusive. So I'm going to play it, and here it is.
Just tell him what? My dad
here it is.
Thinks I should go in my room. He just chokes me out of nowhere and bent my head all the way to my back. Chokes me a lot.
What do you mean? What you keep saying that he puts your head to your back? What does that mean?
That means your neck goes like.
So he pulls your head?
Yeah.
Or he chokes you?
He just pulls my head.
Oh, he pulls your hair back and then all the way to your back. Oh my God, Corey. That's it? How?
It chokes me.
How long?
I'm tapped a lot.
All right, we're going to stop that.
So there you have it, guys. You heard it. And I'm not going to play it again. There you have it. He says, I tap a lot. And then it cuts off after that. He pulls my head back and chokes me and throws me in a room. And like I said, there's more heartbreaking stuff from the Micciolo family from their discussions with Corey. So go check it out. That's Guilty of Crime is the YouTube channel. There's an interview there with Bree Micciolo, and it is the full story. You need to check it out. It's harrowing. But this case is a case here where justice starts with Chris. Give him 40 years. We hope he gets 40 years. He's sentenced August 2nd, but it's got to continue further. The moral of this story is we need this to go deeper. We need the people who were supposed to protect this young child, who allowed him to go back into the custody of his father. Those individuals, the judges, the child protection officials, the prosecutor, whoever it was that was involved in that decision on that fateful Friday, whoever it was who cleared the way for that, they should be charged with manslaughter, reckless manslaughter. They had a duty of care to the child. They had a duty of care to protect that child. And they failed. And they failed. And they should have known that when you send a child back into the hands of an abuser with the degree of abuse that was going on, with the bruises and the bruising on the chest and the multiple times he was put on a treadmill, it wasn't supposed to be. They should have known. Anyways, with that said, guys, we're going to end this broadcast. And until we talk again, let justice.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. move, so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move, so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that, spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah. Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Gonna learn the consequence of being incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams and some honestness. I'm not here to save the day, that's for you to take away. I could play a million mind games, but instead I say something not illogical, something that is topical. Rub it on and watch it go, make yourself unstoppable. Dreams are irresponsible, but they're always possible. If you just believe, you could be so remarkable. Thoughts in my head, a collage and they spread. I'll be great one day, going off of my meds. No, I'm not giving up, no, I'm not giving in. I will make it to the top, taking off in the wind. I gotta make it, I'm saving every day to taste it. I'm patient, but my mind, it can hardly take it. I'm chasing a dream that I've had for several ages. A vacant, modern kingdom for the taking. Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up